Welcome to another episode of the Love and Reality Podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valera. On today's episode, we are going to continue on our journey into the world of Vanderpump Rules. Last week, as I mentioned, or if this is the first time you are listening to the podcast, I have gone back in time and decided to watch Vanderpump Rules from the beginning. I had never watched a single episode. I had heard plenty about each of these characters. You can watch many of reality shows that the cast from this show have appeared on since their time on Vanderpump Rules. But I figured what better way to shake up a little life and figure out the real root of all of the issues between all of these men and women from this show. I decided I didn't want to do it alone, so I tested the friendship of one of my good friends, and I said, hey, would you like to join me on this journey? And he reluctantly said yes, and he has come back for a second episode, so he has not officially knocked me off of his friends list yet, but I'm joined again by my partner here, Mr. Matthew Fox. How are you?
I'm doing good. I was pleasantly surprised that in this episode, at least at some points, people were actually working at these restaurant jobs.
It was definitely a mixture of change for once in our journey here in 2 episodes. So yeah,
of course, the one person that we first see working hard, actually doing their job, gets chewed out. So I don't know what message that sends the rest of them, but hey, now we know they do something.
We do know that at least one person works. So, all right. So as we will do every week, season 1, episode 2. Is titled "This Is a Breakup." The episode aired on January 14th, 2013, almost a full 12 years ago since it aired for us here. And the synopsis from the episode: Lisa has her staff help create a parade float to celebrate gay pride, while Jax wants to fix his relationship with Stassi. This, to me, look, one of my favorite things about this to begin with, all right, was Lisa and Guillermo. Guillermo, he's a business partner, and they were chatting about how gay pride is coming up, and she wants to do a big float and promote the restaurant. He tells her that it's going to cost a lot of money and says they shouldn't do it. However, within that same 3 seconds, he's super against it for money reasons, but she says, I want to do it, and he's like, okay, let's do it. Like, it was just a matter of, like, he said no, I think, just to say no, only to know that it seems like anybody that talks to Lisa Vanderpump, a no is going to be a yes regardless. Is that what you got from this conversation as well?
Yeah, I got that. He's a partner, but not, maybe more of a silent partner. The way she described it too is that she and her husband have run a lot of restaurants, but they're at a point in their lives where they don't want to be there till 3 a.m. So they brought on Guillermo to handle that part. So partner, employee, surf, we can all wrap it up, but this does give us an idea. There are a couple of clues in here. You mentioned it aired in January of 2013, but this is actually happening during the summer of 2012. They reference it being summer a couple of times. They're saying, I don't know, this show is so deep, it's hard to be able to focus on the background, but there was a couple backgrounds when we have a fight between Jax and Stassi later in the episode that says this restaurant is coming fall of 2012. So it kind of gives you a good sense of the timing.
It does. So shortly after this, we have a fun little moment between Stassi and Katie, who are talking about how they've been overdrafting their bank accounts, and Stassi is very, very mad because her parents cut her off. I swore I thought she quit college. I have a note that she quit college. Maybe she finished college.
Maybe it was. I just remember her talking about her dad said he would support her as long as she was in college because college was her job. And I thought that she talks about re-enrolling in graduate school.
Yeah, you're right. She
which
does.
Is, I thought she just finished. But either way, probably the least shocking revelation in the show so far is that Stassi was living off of her parents for quite a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, They would give her a lot of money, is what she said, and now it is all gone. So she's actually having to work as she's attempting to be a model, actress, whatever we're trying to be this week. And then on the flip side, they talk about her and Jax, and she said things aren't going great because he doesn't come home every other night, and she says because he doesn't like confrontation. Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. All right. Again, I want to prefix by saying this that we have a right to change our opinion on these people as these episodes go on. But I can only imagine. Okay. He said, which was hilarious to me. Like at some point in this episode, he talks about he slept in his car outside of their apartment instead of coming into the house. The what we see from Stassi this entire time in a brief episode and a half. Again, I'm not saying Jax is by far the perfect person here, but I feel empathy for this guy because every time he does anything, it is critiqued to another level. This man would rather sleep in his car outside of their apartment than go in the house to deal with her.
Well, that's what he said. We don't know if that was actually true. I also a couple of interesting revelations. She's 23. He's 32. He's too old. Honest, I'm going to be honest. He's too old to be doing what he's doing. I'm just going to toss that out there. First of all, I thought they were all like mid-20s, but she says 32 and it's time for him to grow up. I'm not her biggest fan, but she's not wrong about that. But
not at all.
They've been together for 2 years. In the small sample size we've seen, how did that work?
I don't. That's okay. So that's one of the things that I wrote down was the first thing you're talking about here is she says, I'm 23 years old. I'm an amazing catch. She isn't putting up with a 33-year-old. I was floored. I literally paused my episode.
That might be why her dad cut her off.
And Googled it because I was like, there's no way. And I was like, but then to me, and as awful as this sounds, because we're kind of all over the place here a little bit, but Jax is a model and things are slowing down, but it makes sense. He's 33. Like, it doesn't make it right per se, but he's 33. So of course his career is dwindling down in the quote unquote model world because he's not as young as he once was. He's not as, I'm not saying he's in a great shape for his age and he's not a bad looking dude, but there comes a time in that modeling frame that they're like, all right, we're no longer looking at guys over 30. You're not getting the jobs of 20 and 25-year-old kids, right? And then of course we find out, which was hilarious. Stassi is, she's a little crazy, but she got him fired from a modeling gig because a girl was going to be there. She called the client and said he couldn't do it. And I about died laughing at that as well. But this entire thing was this relationship. Again, we're seeing again an episode and a half. I don't know how many days have passed, maybe a couple days have passed, but if this is a small glimpse of what has happened for 2 years, why the hell are they still together is my biggest question.
Yeah. And, I think most of it, if you look at his bio, which I did, a lot of his big modeling career was from 2002 to 2010. So by the time we're picking up the show, probably tailing off kind of for the reasons you noted. But
2002, so that's what, 10 years prior, he's 23. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
And if you want to do even more math, that makes Stassi, 13 at the time he was in the prime of his modeling career.
Well, they weren't together, so
no. But I'm just saying, like the age gap there is definitely
we'll let that go. But part of the thing is there's a lot of investment in this episode, and if you watch the scenes for next week, in next week's episode of building into this relationship, I didn't think they fit together in the pilot. I sure don't think they fit together in this episode. I mean, are you meant to be rooting for this? Are you meant to be rooting against this? Is this like a slow motion car wreck? If it's a slow motion car wreck, that works fine. But The only thing I'll say is I don't really like either of these two people that much. Maybe they deserve each other.
Exactly. And it's hard. You're right. You're in a rock and a hard place when it comes
I,
to it because it's hard. You know what I mean?
well, and I felt like at the beginning of the episode, so he's actually working real hard trying to make
Yes.
drinks because they're slammed, and she comes up and gives him
Shit for
shit for
not
no
taking.
reason. And then
Well, he didn't take her to work. He didn't pick her up and bring her to work that day.
and then while he's still trying to work, his boss comes over and says, "Don't you think we're busy?" Yeah, I know we're busy. I'm trying to make, I don't like this arguing and stuff. So I felt a little bad for him when they're on the parade float and she's being kind of icy and he's just doing what they asked him to do. They asked him to take his shirt off. He needed sunscreen. He just had the person put it on. I didn't think a lot. I felt a little bad for him. Then you get to the end of the episode and his behavior went right into the toilet and any sympathy went away. So it's like I was kind of hanging with you for 30 minutes, and then in the last 10 minutes you became a douche canoe. And
Yeah, it was definitely a whirlwind of emotions. For the float, BP Major was the person singing on the float. Kristen said working at SUR is the best because does Olive Garden have a float in the gay pride parade? And I just listen to this. Okay, so let me throw this out here. Olive Garden, okay, I have a great idea for you. Okay, I think you should have a float in the gay pride parade. And I think it would be very cool if you throw breadsticks off the float at people. I mean,
it's been over a decade. They might have rectified this.
There might be there's symbolism behind the breadstick if you really want to go in depth. I'm not going to for you guys at home. But I mean, just the idea of having people from Olive Garden riding on a float, maybe it's like a bowl of spaghetti, you know what I mean? Everybody's dressed up and you know what I mean? Maybe there's people dressed up as breadsticks throwing breadsticks off the float during the gay pride parade. I'm telling you, this is $1 million idea. Listen, Olive Garden, I'm telling you, you should do it. If you haven't done it yet, this is your nudge 2025 year gay pride parade, LA. I expect to see a bowl of spaghetti style float with Jax and the rest. I want the crew from this show dressed up as, I want Jax and Tom. There's like 7 Toms dressed up as breadsticks, throwing, or actually dressed up as meatballs, throwing the breadsticks at people. And I think this is it's a brilliant idea.
My other best, the other thing I like the best about that float section is they have Lisa's husband Ken driving it, and she casually mentions that he's a horrible driver who's had a number of rear end collisions. That is not what you want to hear.
Lisa, I think so. Obviously, Lisa is probably the person that you enjoy watching the most because she doesn't have a filter. She really kind of says whatever she wants. And then, of course, we see as they're getting ready for the float to start, Stassi's nowhere to be found. Everybody's like, "Where's Stassi at?" And then the aesthetics are funny. It's 2013, right? So you have to remember that sometimes, because some of the aesthetics from the float, you're like, how wasn't this any better? And then you have to rewind, like, oh, this is 2013. Calm down a little bit, Ricky. But everyone started to drink, and it was hilarious because she's like, hey, guys, no, we're not going to be hammered rolling down the street here. And then Stassi, listen, when Jax took his shirt off, Sheena was enamored, but she was enamored from telling the camera that she was enamored, but not, saying it out loud. Now, Jax needed sunscreen. He needed to have his shirt off. I think here, if anybody else in the world put sunblock on him, it would have been not as a big deal. But because it was Sheena that put the sunblock on Jax, this was World War III because Stassi went nuts. And it was one of the funniest things I see here is, as somebody that watched The Valley last year, Kristen put her nose in the middle of it and things got worse. I love this because obviously modern day, Kristen is also known, and Lisa says this, that she's known to be sticking her nose in the business and making things bigger than they needed to be. And I thought that was hilarious. But Stassi, everything that Jax does is wrong. And again, I'm not saying that, but I do think Lisa finally kind of put her in her place and was like, hey, I told you that working with your boyfriend wasn't exactly going to be the greatest idea ever. Lisa tells her to keep the shit at home and that she's always mad at Jax. So, all right, let's get to Peter's birthday party. No. Wait, hold on. Before we go to Peter's birthday party, we have to talk about Tom Sandoval, who apparently does not like to open his mail. And because of this, he does not have a license. Which I about fucking died laughing. And Kristen talked.
Has to be his chauffeur.
Kristen basically complained that she has to be his chauffeur.
Which you feel a lot of sympathy for her, because then that one clip you get of them driving, he's basically telling her which streets to go on. Like,
yeah, there's nothing.
Here's a quarter, buy a clue.
There's nothing worse than a passenger seat driver, especially when the passenger seat driver cannot drive. You know what I mean?
And the reason you lost your license is because you're too lazy to open your mail, including official correspondence, where he got several warnings about parking tickets. Just didn't. I mean, the cost and the hassle to get your license reinstated after that tomfoolery is beyond the pale.
Tomfoolery. I like it. Pun intended there, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Now let's get to the final scene of the episode here. It's Peter's birthday. Everyone is getting drunk. I think, look, Sheena tried to be the bigger person here. Let's talk about this first. Sheena tried to be the bigger person and talk to Stassi. And she said, I apologize. And then she said the word if. I kind of like, if I made you mad, if I offended you, she's like, oh, no, that wasn't acceptable to Stassi, because she's like, you did do all of this. Again, I'm Team Sheena right now. I don't know what Sheena does in episode 3 through 752, but right now, Sheena's, I think, the only person of this group that I actually think was like, all right, she hasn't done anything really to kind of piss me off, but yeah, this scene, these two there's nothing this girl can do right?
Are there really 752 episodes? Because you just
heard
a little bit there.
No, I don't think there's 752, but there is
I almost had a panic attack. No, I honestly, maybe this
229.
Having two guys discuss this probably isn't exceptional, because, as my wife reminds me all the time, things are different for girls and there are girl rules and stuff. But honestly, I don't know if I would have even tried to go talk to her. It felt like a lost cause, and they're every time they've had a conversation to men, and maybe this is like producers in the background saying, hey, we need a scene, you got to do this. Every time they've tried to mend fences through 2 episodes, it's seemingly gotten worse. I don't know how many more times Stassi can call her essentially a whore without her like slapping, because she definitely did it in episode 1. I mean, just outright, and pretty well does it there in episode 2, saying, that you're making a play for my dude. That was probably the least sexy moment in the history of the show, where she's putting sunscreen on a guy who's burning to death in the middle of a parade float on the middle of the street.
Yeah.
But again, maybe there's girl code things that I don't understand, and I'm happy to be ignorant of all that. But
yeah,
Sheena also one of the only characters where we've seen any sense of a life outside of the restaurant. It was a brief glimpse here. The first episode we saw her doing an actual job, and this one getting cozy tattoos with her mom, which, at least she looks like she has a well-rounded life.
Yeah, life outside of what's transpiring. And then, of course, you alluded to a little bit earlier, but Jax comes into the party, and instead of going right over to his girlfriend, he downs about 7 shots, and he kind of slides. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't mind what he did here, and I know Stassi did not
just
love
for
it.
the record, I'd be on the floor if I had done that. I don't. And when he's offering to drive her home, like, from a safety standpoint, 0.0% chance I'm getting in a vehicle with you, dude. In fact, I can't believe you're offering to drive, unless those were just like tequila mixers and no actual. you down that, and then you went and got a couple other drinks. I know you're a bartender, but
Yeah, it was definitely funny. But like, so he slides over there and tries to come over and kind of, I would say, hit on her, and it's like, hey, what's your name, type of thing. I actually thought it was cute. I actually thought it was kind of funny. She was not happy. She said he's a good boyfriend 70% of the time, and wants someone that is, a good boyfriend 100% of the time. And she said, you need to realize what it's like not to have me. We see these two fighting down the streets, where she ultimately breaks up with Jax. Yeah, I mean, this was the first time where I'm kind of like, Jax, man, like you finally are starting to show maybe those signs of what everybody else talks about, the most hated Jax Tyler here, or yeah, Jax. But yeah, I mean, look, I do think from a overall perspective, I think this episode was far better than the last episode when it came to entertainment purposes.
yeah.
This was, I had a lot of fun with this episode. I mean, it's still like, what the hell's going on? But from an entertainment purposes, I enjoyed it more.
Yeah, I thought it was better. This first season, I think it's got 10 episodes, but 9 and 10 look like they're recaps and reunions. So I'm assuming there's going to be some kind of a hook. It's the shortest, so maybe we'll get some propulsive action. But I certainly liked episode 2 a little more than episode 1, at least for the unintentional comedy of it all.
Exactly.
Or maybe the intentional comedy.
Or the intentional. That's it, folks. We are 2 episodes down of this 229 episode journey.
That didn't make me feel any better. The year is 2031, and they're going to keep adding episodes. That's a problem.
Well, so the thing about it is they announced that the entire new season of Vanderpump Rules is going to be an entire new set of cast. So
good. So then we'll call it a day.
Yeah,
we're only wedded to the OG.
We're only wedded. Who knows what we're. But 229. But we're episode 2 of 229. We are down and out. But yeah, much better episode this week. We will be back next week talking about
nothing like seeing 2 50-year-old guys talking about dating shit in 10 years.
We'll be back talking about episode 3, which is called You Don't Know Jax. So we'll talk to you guys next week.